What's up, guys, and welcome to the next weekly ramble video. I hope you all are doing absolutely fantastic. Today we are opening up a pack of Born of the Gods. Not an incredibly exciting pack, if I'm going to be honest, but there are a few cards in here that I would love to get, specifically some of the gods I'm really stoked about. So hopefully we get something good. Of course, as always, we're going to look at this for a pack one, pick one perspective. So we'll do the best we can to figure out what our actual pack one pick would be. How many P words can I say in one sentence? If we were actually in a draft set. So that's going to be the plan. We will, of course, go through every card. So the first one here is Weight of the Underworld. It is 3 and a black for an enchant creature, and the creature gets -3/-2. I actually don't mind this card. It's a pretty decent removal spell. It's a little bit limited. It's not really the best by any means. I would much rather have something that just says destroy target creature. This is obviously pretty limited. It also doesn't hit anything with hexproof on the opponent's side, but it is still a viable card. I think this is definitely something I would play if I was in a black deck. I would very much want this as a removal option. So I do like this card. Not amazing, but not bad either. Sphinx's Disciple is a 2/2 for 3 and 2 blue with flying. And it does have Inspired, so whenever it becomes untapped, you draw a card. Inspired was a mechanic specific to this set, and whenever it becomes untapped, it actually gets an effect. In this case, it draws a card. So this is an interesting one. I don't really like it. I don't know if it really works very well. It's 5 mana for a 2/2, which is pretty expensive. And yes, I know it does have flying, so you're going to be able to evasively get in for some damage, ideally, but 5 mana for a 2/2 flyer is kind of late, and so I don't know that you'll actually be able to get much damage in with it. So I'm not a huge fan of this card. I think so far Weight of the Underworld is definitely a better pick, but hey, we're only 2 cards in. So Wor Chanter of Mogus is a 3/3 for 3 and 2 black. It does also have Inspired, so whenever it becomes untapped, target creature you control gains Intimidate until end of turn. Again, this is a little bit expensive. I feel like Inspired is a good, it's an okay mechanic, I would say, because I do like the ability, if you're going to be aggressive, especially be able to swing in and then get an ability every time you untap on that next turn. And this is perfect for a very aggro-centric deck where you're going to want things to be evasive. You're going to want to give evasive abilities to low ground creatures. This seems great for that. It's just, it still is a little bit too expensive at 5. I might be wrong. I just feel like I'm trying to keep my curve low, trying to be very aggressive. A 3/3 on turn 5 is not going to be able to swing in for very much, just because it's going to be outclassed on other creatures on the field. So, not a fan of this card. I don't know if this is really good or really bad. I didn't play much during this set, but I feel like it's not great. Revoke Existence is a sorcery for 1 and a white. Exile target artifact or enchantment. I do like that this is exile. I also like that it's artifacts and enchantments. Yes, this is more of a sideboard option, but enchantments were really a big central part of this whole block. And so for a card like this to be in your deck, or at least in your sideboard, is definitely a good option. I do like it. Not a card I would first pick by any means, but definitely one I'd be interested in having. If I was in a white deck, I'd want it as a sideboard option. Scouring Sands is a sorcery for 1 and a red. It deals 1 damage to each creature your opponent controls, and then you scry 1. This is an interesting card. It only has 1 damage, so I'm not like a huge fan of it. Certain matchups are going to love a card like this. If you've got a lot of token strategies or something along those lines, you'll definitely want this card. So I do like it, not as a first pick, and mostly as a sideboard card. I do like that it also scries 1. Scry was a big part of this set as well, and so being able to throw that onto a card like this just helps smooth out your draws, give you better plays in the future. And so I do like this card. It's not amazing. It's, again, more of a sideboard option. Caramos' Favor is an enchantment for 1 and a green. It's an enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and the enchanted creature has tap and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. This is kind of an effect that we've seen multiple times in multiple sets. I like it. I like that this draws you a card, actually. I think that's pretty good. There's really only one deck I would play this in, which would be just kind of 5-color jank. If you just kind of happen to get stuck with a bunch of stuff, or you've got a really big fatty that's in a number of different colors that you want to play, this card is like okay. It's not amazing. It does draw a card, so it's going to replace itself, which is helpful. It kind of gets around the the 2-for-1 that you normally can kind of open yourself up to with an enchant creature. And it also does fix your mana, which I think is great. I do like that, but it really doesn't affect the board all that much, which in limited is really the idea. You want to get really big board kind of haymaker cards, and something like this can help you get to those, so that's kind of why I'm okay with it, but you really have to be stuck on mana to want to play a card like this, or just be in multiple colors, I should say. Roscas Sun Guide is a 2/2 for 1 and a white. It also has Inspired. When it becomes untapped, you gain 2 life. This is just an average 2/2. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I would definitely play it. It's a 2/2 for 2 with upsides, so there's nothing wrong with it by any means. Gaining 2 life, not that great of an ability, but it is 2 life. It's going to help you out in the long run, so I would take it. I don't think I'd take it over Weight of the Underworld. I just feel like that is a little bit better. It's going to be able to deal with a lot more stuff. This is just going to be a solid 2-drop. So like, so far, definitely feeling the Weight of the Underworld a little bit more. Stratis Walk, an enchant creature for 1 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. The creature has flying, and the enchanted creature can block only creatures, with flying. This is, again, not great, if I'm going to be honest. I do, again, love that it draws you a card. I think that's fine. That kind of helps me want to play a card like this a little bit more. But just giving a creature flying and then limiting its blocking ability for 2 doesn't seem that great. I'd much rather have something do a little bit more. And yes, this is only a 2-mana card. This might be a playable card even, but for me, this is not something I would pick. Nullify is an instant for 2 blue, counter target creature or aura spell. That's actually going to be a lot of this set. Again, enchantments are a big part of it. We just saw Stratis Walk is an aura, so it's going to be able to hit a good bit. It also is just target creature, which in general is going to be great as well. I think if you're in a very blue focused deck, maybe splashing a second color, this is going to be just fine. It's a little bit difficult to cast, so that's why I say you really have to be dedicated to blue. 2 blue mana. To be able to do that reliably on turn 2 and just kind of leave this up is a little bit sketchy, but it is solid. I think it's great. Hitting creatures in limited is really what you want to do. Creatures are going to be the main thing, most likely, that your opponents are going to be using to get you sort of down, get you dead, that kind of thing. So being able to nullify it with a card like this is great. So I'm perfectly fine with that. I think I'd still prefer the Weight of the Underworld, but I'm going to keep these both here for now because I might change my mind. We'll see. Impetuous Sun Chaser is a 1/1 for 1 and a red. It has flying and haste. It also attacks each turn if able. This is an actually okay card. I'm not a huge fan of it because it does have to attack every turn, but it is a 1/1 flyer with haste, so it's going to be able to deal its damage immediately. Even if it pings for only 1-2 damage, it's going to be worthwhile. Yes, it's only 2 mana too, so it's going to be a very easy cast. So I do like this in an aggressive deck. I think this is perfectly fine. I don't like it over Weight of the Underworld for sure, and probably not over Nullify either, but it is a decent card. Oops. Adonis River Trawler, I hope I'm saying that correctly, is a 2/2 for 2 and a black. When it enters the battlefield, return target enchantment creature card from your graveyard to your hand. You can also pay a white and sacrifice it to return target enchantment creature card from your graveyard to your hand as well. This is an interesting card. I like this in a certain style deck. It's basically a Grave Robber, I believe is the name, where it pulls out a certain card, but this is a little bit more specific. It's enchantment creature. It also is a little bit cheaper, which is good too, and you can actually get 2 activations out of it if you're running white along with it. So I actually do kind of like this. I feel like you really have to have the enchantment creatures already in your deck to want a card like this. Or if you're going to pick this early, you're really going to have to prioritize those creatures. That may or may not be good. It kind of depends on where you want to go with it. I think I would rather have the enchantment creatures first and then be able to pick up a card like this. And so for me, I don't think I would first pick it. Searing Blood is an instant for 2 red. It deals 2 damage to target creature. When that creature dies this turn, it deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. This is a really powerful burn spell. So obviously 2 damage to target creature. It's going to deal with a decent amount of low ground stuff. A lot of the creatures we've seen would die to that, which is important. On top of that, if that creature does die, it deals 3 damage to that creature's controller, and I like that as well. Obviously representing 5 damage for only 2 mana is pretty solid. Yeah, it's gonna have to take down a low ground creature, but in a red deck, it kind of doesn't matter. You're just trying to run them over as quickly as possible, so dealing a few damage, getting rid of a creature, perfect for a deck like that. I definitely like this better than Nullify, and I do think I like it better than Weight of the Underworld. One important thing to note, it is double red. That's important. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to cast, but it's also less important to cast right away. There are going to be instances most likely where this will hit something at most board positions, so like you can kind of hold on to it, and depending on what the actual board state looks like, kind of fire it off whenever you need to. So I like that a lot. Ooh. Fanatic of Xena This is a pretty good one. So 3/3 trample for 1, a red and a green. It also has tribute 1, so as it enters the battlefield, an opponent of your choice may place a 1/1 counter on it. When it enters the battlefield, if tribute was paid, it gets +1/+1 and gains haste until end of turn. Excuse me, was not paid. Misread that. So this is a really, really interesting card. Obviously, they're gonna want to put, they're gonna want to tribute it and give you the 1 counter. But this is a really powerful card for only 3 mana. Yes, it's a gold card, and I'm not a fan of taking those early in a set where gold cards are not necessarily the focus. It's not like there's a ton of fixing, but I would definitely want this card. So I think so far this is definitely the pick. Just a really, really powerful beater. A lot of value on it. And then speaking of fixing, Temple of Plenty. So this enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you scry 1. This is part of the Scryland cycle. It also taps for green and white, which is great. I'm not really a fan of taking lands unless you're kind of in a position where you really need them. Temple of Plenty is perfectly fine if you're in those colors and you need it, but it's not a first pick by any means. And so for me, I think it's definitely Fanatic of Xena That is absolutely going to be the pick. I just think it's the most powerful card here for sure. So feel free in the comment sections to let me know if you felt like I did something wrong on that draft, but I feel pretty confident on that one. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure to leave a like or a comment down below, and as always, please make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of our awesome content. With that, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next Crack a Pack video.